There are two ways for a core to exist. One is two keepers decide to combine their magic in order to create what is essentially a tiny marble orb that will eventually become a core. Or it can form naturally when magic condenses into itself to form a tiny ball. And these tiny balls are stored in what is called a nursery, a realm of pure energy and magic. This is where the course can be the safest in its earliest stage of development. These cores cannot produce a body on their own. They are far too small. They are heavily guarded for hundreds of years until they can form a body, and often these bodies are shapeless and small. They don't even know their purpose. That's discovered later on. As the core matures and grows, they'll slowly realize what their magic can do. Their bodies will start to leak out magic, which would produce them their own realm. And in this realm, they can create their own beings. However, sometimes a core is just not strong enough to produce enough magic to create a realm. These keepers are considered lesser than, as they cannot keep a realm, and how are they a keeper if they're not keeping anything? One of these keepers is known as potential, or the keeper of power. Since their creation, they have been used as a battery, an emergency, for keepers to get more energy whenever they are out, whenever they can't rely on the natural setting to regain what they have lost. During the wars, they expected potential to not only power them, but to not be treated as an equal. Whenever they needed a treaty between humans and keepers, they decided one of them will produce a child, the way humans do. And though she didn't want to, potential was chosen for that task. She was chosen to bear a core human hybrid child, who was meant to stop the constant fighting, the constant wars between the keepers and their own creations. This child ended up with the power of balance, able to equalize anybody internally. They didn't expect the hybrid to be able to produce a realm. After all, how could it produce enough magic to possibly own one? Instead, they let the child run around the first realm, Universe's realm. But potential was done. She had given up so much of herself to try to earn the respect, the care of the other keepers around her. And it was for nothing. They barely looked at her, barely gave her a second glance. They didn't respect her. So when keepers started to grow sick, their cores growing in taint and corruption, it's very, very spreadable. It's contagious. So no one was questioning why keepers were going missing, was questioning why some of them just didn't come back. So she left. She left her cozy little realm where everything was easy. She left everything she knew behind in an attempt to finally get away. And no one looked for her. She was assumed another tragedy, another loss of the taints, of the corruption. But she wasn't. She decided to go live within the first realm where her son was produced. But having no documentation, no ID saying which realm you're from and why you are there, became a problem. So she started looking for jobs. She started hunting for something to do until she stumbled across Villains for Hire. This concept made it to where you didn't need documentation. The jobs were semi-illegal, but nobody questioned where you came from. It was money. It was still freedom. She learned with time that she was very good at playing a villain role, at being the bad guy. She grew in a name for herself. She went by Io, Putade Io. While on one of her assignments, she saw a kingdom burning, screams echoing out into the world, and a small child with golden hair and blue siren eyes. He was crying, curled up on the ground, begging for somebody to help him. To Io, that just wouldn't do. Someone expecting to be helped, someone expecting others to understand, to care, is something she knows they will never do. So she walked up to the boy. Hey kid, let me tell you something nobody else will. She leaned in close to the small child. Everyone's fighting for some but then. Everyone's lost someone, and no one cares what you choose to do. They will stomp on bodies while screaming they suffer more. So you can stay here crying, begging for a hero, or you can pick yourself up and start moving. The small child looked at this being before him. Why are you telling me this? The child asked. Eos chuckled. Because you can stay here crying about how life's unfair and that you didn't deserve what became of your home. Or you can pick yourself up and train to survive. But how can I do that? The child asked. Well, with no name, no idea, no connection to anyone, you would have no chance. Unless you became a villain for hire. A villain for hire? The child asked. Yes, a villain for hire. That's what I do. If you want, I could train you how to do so. The child looked in disbelief and confusion. Why would you train me? Why would you even help me? Eos thought for a moment. I pity you. Maybe I see myself reflected in those blue eyes. The child looks back on the burning kingdom that used to be his home and takes Eo's hand into his own. Still far too young to be on his own, but far too old to be hopeful of the world. My name is... Io stopped him. Don't tell me your name. It holds a power you cannot comprehend. A nickname, something you would prefer to be called by, would be best. Then you will call me Ace. Ace of Cards. Well, Ace, I'm Io, a villain for hire, and I'll teach you everything I know. They worked together. For countless years, Ace growing in ranks of villains for hire, becoming extremely feared, while Io watched like a proud mother. This child that used to tremble in his boots at the smallest confrontation, now becoming the most feared, the most terrifying villain for hire there is. Ace has become a household name. People fear him. People want him to join their team. Of course he doesn't, though. That defeats the purpose of a villain for hire. The highest bid gets his loyalty for as long as you can pay him that much. And those who decide to cross him, to not pay him, to try to back out of deals, well, they don't live to regret it. And no one knows exactly what happens, besides the fact that they're not there anymore. He's not a good person. I would dare to say that he is probably the most terrifying person you will meet. But everyone's fighting for something. Everyone's lost someone. And he knows that he can't ask for help. So he doesn't ask. He's strong enough to fight on his own. Just watch him. As for Eos, she's found a good contract. This newbie villain, who goes by Doom, has been hiring a bunch of people. And creating an organization. Last you has heard, Ace has settled down, has a family of his own. A family who doesn't know of his villain past, of where he came from. That's alright, though. She won't judge him. Everyone needs to live. Everyone's fighting for someone. And everyone's lost something.